Music doesn't define me, I define music. Music doesn't make me, I make music. Heading into the deal at 24 and then releasing This Is How We Do It at 25 years old. Overnight success doesn't account for all the nights that it took to get to overnight.
This is the first time I'm interviewing anyone who shares a similar faith to me. So I'm excited to talk to you, like really excited. And
Awesome.
I was wondering if would you mind even starting us off with a little prayer? How would you feel?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. You ready?
Yeah.
God, thank you so much. Thank you for my sister. Thank you for Kristen. I thank you for her life. I thank you for vision. I thank you for what she's fallen into, God, that you already had planned for her. I thank you for Safe Harbor. I thank you for the viewers and listeners who will be a part of not just this, but the amazing things that you are birthing through her. I pray that this time is fruitful, it's productive, that we have a great opportunity to connect with one another, and that our faith even transcends what we know about heaven, but is productive here in helping people guide the course of their lives on earth. And we pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Ah, I love that. All right, let's hop in. So, I know a lot about you. This Is How We Do It was my jam. I was born in the 80s, so um, I know a lot about you from the song because I know the song was sort of a reflection of growing up in South Central LA.
Mhm.
So I only recently learned that both of your parents are deacons or were deacons back in the day.
Yes.
So
Yes.
and a Baptist background, right?
Correct.
Okay, so is it safe to say that music was a big part of your life growing up?
Yeah, I would say music was a huge part of my life growing up, specifically because my entire earlier portion of life was in church. The
Yeah.
Baptist church was my musical training ground. So my mom was a deaconess, my dad was a deacon. My uncle was the head of the deacon board. My godmother was head over the choir. My grandmother was on the mother's board. So every weekend at church was a family reunion. And then
Mm,
because I was a church musician throughout the week, I was there probably 6 out of the 7 days that church was happening. Anytime the doors of the church was open, I was there sitting on the piano, and my
okay.
godbrother Shep was on the organ. So yes, music was a huge part of my childhood, and gospel music specifically was the backdrop of my training ground.
Okay. So was piano your first instrument? Were you singing
Yeah,
too?
I actually was not singing. I was
Okay.
not singing. I want to say my very first instrument was not piano. It actually was a clarinet.
Mm,
And I was not really good at clarinet, and I thought it was boring because it was just one little instrument that you held like this.
yeah.
And then my grandfather, Wesley Jordan, uh, heard I was playing clarinet, and he introduced me to a saxophone. And a saxophone had the same fingering as a clarinet, but it was sexier. It was a gold color, and
Yeah.
instead of holding it like this, you held it like this, and it had curves. And
Yeah.
so I moved from clarinet to saxophone, which I played saxophone probably for 8 years of my life. And then sometime in that space of doing those things is when I started also picking up piano and stuff like that. So my very first instrument was clarinet.
Okay. That's really funny. So my first instrument was clarinet as well, and I thought it was boring.
What?
Well, this is in high school though. I always loved music, but my second instrument was also saxophone. But I ended up it turns out I'm a drummer. Well, I like percussion, so I play djembe, but I get your mentality, like kind of looking for something a little bit more exciting.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
tell me about the first time you ever sang on stage. Where was that? How did that come about?
Well, those are two different things. The first time I ever sang on stage and the first time I ever sang in church, those are very, very different times. So,
Hmm.
I just in order to for your viewers to be able to distinguish, I believe that stages are for performances, and platforms are for influence.
Mm.
And so stages are the places that I've done shows and concerts and entertaining.
Yeah.
Platforms are places that I've spoken or things that I've done to influence a person towards a certain thing. So my first in church performance, I would say I was probably around 9 years old, 8 or 9 years old, and I sang a song called "He's Able." And
Mm.
it was just a simple, he's able to carry you through no matter what the world may do. Try Jesus, for he satisfies. He's waiting just to hear your cry. Trust him in everything you do, for he'll bear the load for you. I know he's he's able to carry you through. Oh, he's able. That was my first song.
That's
Uh,
amazing.
that
You
was
still
my
remember it.
first performance, my first song.
Wow. The
And
church go wild? Was
I
everyone
mean,
like, what?
when you're a little kid, it was more of, oh, bless your heart, you know.
Oh,
It was not great,
okay.
but it was a kid. It was a kid singing for the Lord. And growing up in South Central LA, a lot of the older black male role models I had growing up started to either die or
Mm.
gang violence or prisons, or it got very, very tough. And so a lot of the older boys that I looked up to went away. And so now I sang by default because there was no other younger males to sing it. So
Wow.
the younger kids of us coming up kind of grew into that next tier of vocalist.
Wow. That's an amazing story. Okay, so how does that little boy get to having a number one hit on the top of the charts? You know, making millions of dollars, selling millions of records. Like, how does that happen? Like, what's that bridge?
Well, I would say there's these key moments, I believe, in a person's life, or I don't know if you call them aha moments, or whatever those things are for you. I know and I can remember these key moments in my life where I went, oh, that's what I'm here to do.
Hmm.
So, that kid growing up in church that sang He's Able, played piano and organ in a church from the time I was about 9, 10 years old up until, my second year in college. I can remember, though, in high school, there was this moment where I was at a high school talent show. I didn't
Hmm.
really fit in high school. I was funny, so I was able to survive high school, but I did not really fit in. I was not one of the cool kids. My last name was Jordan. I was 6'5", and I didn't play basketball.
Oh no.
So there was a lot of ridicule.
Yeah,
It was
kids are
tough.
mean, man.
It was tough, but I do remember a high school talent show where I sat down to a piano in this Catholic gymnasium, and all the parents and my fellow peers were there. And I sat down to a piano and I played Lionel Richie's Jesus is Love.
Oh.
Father, help your children. Don't let them fall by the side. And I played it and sang it. And I can remember looking out at the faces of my peers and their parents for the
Mm.
first time, and they were in awe. They literally were looking at me like, "Oh, that's what you do."
Oh.
And I remember watching that and finishing that song, and the gymnasium exploding in applause, and they stood on
Mm.
their feet, and I sat on the piano, and in that moment that they were saying, "Oh, that's what you do," something inside me said, "Oh, that's what I do." And so now, fast forward,
Mm.
I'm now in college, and I was doing these little kind of after college. Actually, I did a lot of music in school, stuff like that. But I was a student. Um, I came out, got a job, was doing these little showcases. Something called the Crystal Penny Showcase was in
Yes,
Pasadena, California.
I read about this. Yeah.
Shanice Wilson's mother would host these, Monday night showcases. I would go there and just kind of moonlight and sing.
Mm.
And there was that second aha moment where one night I'm singing. It was it was either Janet Jackson or Shanice Wilson's birthday party, but they were both there in the same place. And I remember I
Crazy.
was I was singing that night, packed crowd for a club. And as I was singing on stage, people started walking up to the stage and bringing money and dropping
Wow.
money at my feet, Kristen. And so that was a moment when I saw people laying money at my feet, and I was like, oh, that's what I do, you know? And so that was
Mhm.
another moment of, okay, all of these things don't give me what I got in that Catholic school gymnasium or what I got
Yeah.
right there, you know, in that club on that night. So I think those were the key moments that led me to selling all of my car, going on welfare for a little bit, and creating a demo that would make its way into the hands of Russell Simmons
Mm.
at Def Jam. And that, I think, was the beginning of Boy Montell getting his record deal and
Yeah.
getting to the place of starting my journey on becoming an artist.
How old would you have been at that point?
At that point, I want to say, well, when I was in college, that was 17,
Okay.
18, 19 to 21. And then I'm now working. I didn't get the record deal. I mean, I was trying to do music from the time I was, 19 years old, and I didn't get the record deal until I was like 24, 25.
Okay.
So literally the definition of overnight success, you
Yeah.
know how they say, oh, Montell Jordan was an overnight success. People don't understand that there were lots of nights that I went to bed and woke up and was not successful. And there
Hmm.
was 7 years of going to bed and waking up not successful
Yeah.
until the one moment when I finally did wake up and became this overnight success. So
Yeah.
overnight success doesn't account for all the nights that it took to get to overnight.
Yeah. Like it's dedication to your craft, right? It's
Yeah.
dedication to what you're doing and hard work. And um obviously that passion was really deep, right? For you to go through those 7 years, to sell your car, to go on welfare, like you obviously felt like this is where I'm meant to be, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a persistence that comes alongside of, determining I'm going to win at this, or, when there is no plan B. I
Right.
think that was, I did have a plan B. My plan B was to go to law school. I was like, but
Yes.
I'm gonna shoot my shot with everything I have right here. I'm gonna give my all. And if I fall flat on my face, I'm gonna fall forward. I'm not gonna fall on my back. I'm gonna fall forward. And so that was the
Yeah.
journey. And if I didn't make it, then I'd probably be your lawyer.
Yeah. Okay. So like, so what was it like for that Montel back then to have basically gone from welfare to signing a deal and becoming an overnight sensation? What was that like? Like not many of us ever get to experience fame in the way that you have. What did that look like for such a young man at that time? I mean, you're still a young
Yeah.
man, but I mean, 23-year-old Montel.
23-year-old Montel learned some very, very valuable lessons. I learned that fame is currency. And when I say fame is currency, I think that you and people, I won't say you, but I will say people will exchange pieces of themselves, of
Mm,
their character, their integrity. They'll exchange those things for fame, because
mm,
fame is a currency. Fame can have you walk up to a packed out club and the owner say, yeah, you and your people can come in and there's no charge.
mm,
Fame says, hey, here's bottle service, or dinner's on us, or come backstage at the concert. Fame allows you to move and flow in different places because a current is something that flows. And so the
mm,
currency of fame allows you to access certain things. Now, at the same breath, there's a cost that comes with fame as well. In order to have that currency, there's a value that's attached to it. And so I spent many years in financial binds, many years in debted, uh, and having huge records, but having all those things in exchange for fame. So 23-year-old Montell heading into the deal at 24 and then releasing This Is How We Do It at 25 years old. This is a kid who grew up in a black home, on a black block in a black neighborhood, at a black church in a black city, all of those different things. Those were my lives, and so I didn't have certain things in my life to know the difference between something that was authentic and something that's counterfeit.
Right.
So now I'm in a world where people are saying, "Hey, Montell, we're going to put you on a plane and we're going to fly you here, and a car is going to pick you up and bring you here. Oh, and we're going
Yeah.
to have dinner, I'm saying at Ruth Chris. Oh, we're going to do this, and oh, we're going to shoot this video that's $300,000, and oh, we're going to spend $100,000 on your wardrobe." I didn't have anything, so for me, the exchange for fame, there was a currency that came out of my soul, really,
Yeah.
that was in exchange for people knowing who I am. I now have the notoriety. I can go places, I can do shows, I can perform. People can bootleg my t-shirts and sing my songs. But the cost of that fame, someone else was reaping the benefits, the labels and the
Yeah.
publishers and the people that, were able to do that. And so that's what
Yeah.
young Montel had to learn on that pathway, that I took the fame and other people took all the other
Yeah.
resources.
That makes me really angry.
Well, let me say this,
Like,
and no,
like,
it's
had you been surrounded by people who had your best interest at heart at all the throughout the entire process, do you think it could
well,
have been different?
no, I don't think it's different for anyone. I think that the cost I'm paying is a cost that probably every artist pays.
Mm.
And here's the ideal behind that. I think that I signed a record deal, and a deal is something that you agree to.
Right, of course.
Whether it's a good deal or a better deal or a bad deal, it doesn't matter. A deal is what you agree to. And so my lawyers looked at it, all my people that I had said, "Hey, we're going to get the opportunity to make music and travel the world," and we said we would do it for free. And so it's not an anger thing. I think because me and Def Jam have had a great relationship throughout the years, even after we broke apart and went
Yeah,
separate ways.
yeah,
They needed something from me, and they put up the collateral for it, and I got the fame from it, and I have a career now, still 30 years later, that I can still travel the world, I can still tour, and without them, I cannot say that I would have had been afforded that. So I'm not angry that the system and the way that system is designed
yeah.
is for labels to win and be successful at what they do at making stars.
So here's an interesting question, because the music industry's changed so much over the years, right? Like it's people don't even need labels anymore, and there's the internet. People are going viral just, on the internet. Um, if you were given the opportunity to do it all again, would you do it the same way? Like, would you go back to that younger self and have some advice for him?
Um, that's always a difficult question, Kristen, because everything that I went through then has made me who I am now.
I know.
And I know that if I had done things different, and I'm talking about I did bad things too. I did things that weren't good in my marriage. Like I have a journey that if someone would say, if I could take back that hurt or if I could take back that pain, would I have taken those things back? And the challenge is right now, my wife and I, we minister to couples in
Mm,
a place of transparency and authenticity, that had I been able to go back and change that, I wouldn't have the tools that I have now, or the story, or the authenticity, or the credibility,
mm,
uh, to be able to speak into helping the people that we're walking alongside of now. So, if
mm.
anything, I would have changed. If I could go back and change anything, I would have been more financially savvy with my resources instead of buying dumb stuff that artists do. And I would have bought lots of land and property, is what I would have done.
Yeah, That's a great point. You've said it a few times since we started talking. You kept having these little moments where, people would say, "Oh, this is what you do." And then, the money at your feet while you're playing and oh yeah, this is what I do. Do you think as a young man there was ever a confusion between like this is what I do and this is who I am?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's a great question, by the way. That was a breaking point between me and God. That
Mm,
literally was a point where I thought music defined who I was. And I
yeah.
can remember being so wrapped in, if you don't have a number one record, if you're not on the charts, if you're not dropping an album, if you're not in the studio, who are you?
Mm,
If you're not making hits, if you're not traveling, if you're not doing, who are you? And I can remember saying that outside of music, I don't know who I am. And God loved me enough to say, I'll show you.
mm.
I'll I will show you who you are without music. And so I went through a process, a humbling
It
process
must have been scary.
of fame and
Yeah.
notoriety and finance and resource and music, and everything was stripped away. In the Bible, some of your listeners and watchers may not be Christian. I understand that. The Bible talks about, it says something about humble yourself, um, because you don't want God to have to humble you. It's a very different process. I did not humble myself,
Oh
and so
no.
God had to humble me, and God's humbling me led me through a journey of bankruptcy and of all types
Wow.
of different things, loss of a child, house fires. Like
Yeah.
we've had some pretty traumatic type of stuff to have to navigate through. But
Yeah.
through that process, what I learned, without money, without music, without hit records, without fame, without notoriety, without any of those things, I learned that I'm a son, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a friend, I'm a giver, I'm an intellect, I'm a teacher, I'm a speaker, I'm a lover. Like I learned all these things about
Mm,
me without music, without a microphone.
mm,
And so what I learned is that music doesn't define me. I define music.
mm.
Music doesn't make me. I make music. And so,
Beautiful.
so when
Yeah.
I learned that, that to me was a huge, huge place of that blurred line of who am I without music. I know if I never pick up another mic again, I know who I am. And I know who I am because the one who made me gave me the instructions manual to be able to show me all the intricacies and the
Yeah.
details of how I'm beautifully and wonderfully made.
Yeah. Like when you're walking the path and you're respecting like your purpose, there you're going to be fulfilled no matter what it is. And I don't know if you read into Safe Harbor, but I do support artists and I try to encourage sobriety on the road. And um, there I do deal with a lot of people who battle addiction, and not just artists, like just people in general, but
Super.
but it's a hard road, right? And when you're an artist on the road and your riders are there's booze everywhere. And like you said, it's currency. You're walking into places and people are just handing you drugs and alcohol, and there's women and men everywhere. And there's a reason why people fall into all of this. But what comes with all of that and what I've seen is just shame, right? People are so intertwined with their shame that it's hard for them to see a life outside of it. But what I always say, and like even hearing your story, it's like I truly believe that some people are given really harder lives than others because they're being called to make a bigger impact and to
Mm-hmm.
and like that's kind of what I'm hearing here from you. And like you said, everything you went through, like you can't change it because it's brought you to who you are. And you are doing some insanely powerful work right now through Masterpiece, right? Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Masterpiece. So I want to hear about that too, because to me that's so interesting. So you created a virtual church. It's all virtual, right?
Yeah, it's a virtual house church in Georgia.
Yeah.
We have an amazing property in Georgia. It's a 13,000 square feet home that sits on 6 acres, and it's a house church. The idea was birthed through the pandemic when people could not
Yeah.
go to a local church. We figured out a way to bring the local church to people's homes, to their living rooms. There were some people who haven't ever really gone to church. There are some people who are tired of what traditional church looks like. There are some people who are immune compromised. There are elderly. There are people
Mhm.
who are imprisoned. There are people who are playing in the NBA or the NFL, or they have a certain measure of notoriety that they can't have an authentic worship experience in a public church, in a local church, because of their fame.
Yeah.
And so we've learned that there are spaces that you can create in your home with your circle of influence where people can worship with their family or their friends and have dinner and have a meal, and that's what we've done with Masterpiece Church. We've created a place, a virtual space for
Mhm.
worship and for the word to be able to meet people right where they are. And so
Yeah.
we're church is almost a year old now, and so we're growing and loving what we do. There are people who watch from all over the world,
Yeah.
and that's pretty cool.
You're brilliant. It's such a brilliant thing to do. And I love that you're doing it with your family. How do you find balance? Because I have friends that are pastors and like they're very busy. So, and you're still doing a lot. Like I just saw an Uber Eats commercial with you on it, and that was friggin' awesome. That was so cool. I was like, I'm interviewing him.
Yeah.
But like how do you manage balance right now? About like family life balance and taking time for Montel and like how do you do that?
I choose to prioritize over balancing.
Okay.
Um, in other words, Kristen, some things were never meant to be balanced. I've watched people their entire lives say, "How do I balance my marriage and my career?"
Hmm.
Balancing, by definition, is trying to give something equal value to something else.
Ooh,
So
I like that.
why would I try and give my marriage and my job the same balance? How do I balance,
Ooh.
my job and my kids? Because I got to work, I got to make money for my family. How do I give equal value to my career and to my kids? When I say that, that should just do something inside of somebody watching this right now. How do
Yeah.
I give equal
Yeah.
value
I have goosebumps.
to a
So,
career and to my kids? And so what I learned is that you don't have to balance what you prioritize. If I
mm,
place God first, I don't have to say, well, how do I go to church if I have to do a job? I my God has to come first,
mm,
because if my God doesn't come first, then my job comes first. That means my job is my God. And if my
mm,
job is my God, then all the things that come in your life now pattern themselves after your job being your God. But if God is my God, if Jesus is my God, and then after Jesus, my wife is my first priority, and then after my wife, my kids are my next priority. I don't have to worry about balancing my wife and my kids. There is
mm.
no balance there. My kids know mommy comes first, because when
Yeah.
I prioritize her behind God, then there's an order, because God's a God of order. And then if my kids know, well, I at least know where I fall in line. I know dad's got God first, and then he's got mom, and then us. I can be comfortable functioning in the space that I'm given, because I don't have to vie for position with mommy or with his job, because I know
Hmm.
where my sweet spot is, where I belong, because I've been given a priority
Hmm.
in his life and in that space. And so from God and my spouse and my kids and my church and my family and my friends and my myself, all of those different things, I prioritize them. And then from that standpoint, that's easier to balance this way than to try
Mm.
and balance this way.
Yeah, I just hear a lot of trust. like you're just putting a lot of trust in into God, and that as long as you're um yeah, like walking the path that you're meant to, that everything else is just going to fall into alignment. That's sort of what I'm hearing. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, it does. It does. I am literally making conscious choices to put things where they are supposed to be. I think it's like spiritual chiropractic work.
Yeah.
There's a certain way that our backs and our bodies are designed, and if vertebrae get out of place, the entire body shifts and becomes out of alignment. And so
Yeah.
you have to get adjusted regularly,
Yeah.
spiritual adjustments to put
Yeah.
everything back in place.
Yeah, that's how I coach actually, is just with that, in order for people to feel healthy and be living out their purpose and walking their path, there needs to be like a spiritual, physical, and mental alignment.
Sure.
And it's finding that because it's true, when one of them is out of place, the whole your whole life can feel chaotic. This is a question I ask everybody that I interview because I find the answers really interesting. But I want you to pretend you're sitting beside a really small-minded person, okay? And you have to tell them the biggest, boldest, craziest dream that you could come up with for your life. And there's no walls. God's got the finances, he's got everything taken care of. What would be Montell's biggest, most boldest, beautiful dream for his life?
Okay, so there's a lot of layers to that. I
Don't
think
don't but don't read into it too much. It's more the answers, the more the first thing that comes to you.
I want to help save 1 million marriages.
Oh,
That's the thing that comes to mind for me. I would like to help save, and we can't save marriages. God does that, but I'd like to help. I'd like to be a part of a bigger story than that's the guy who's saying this is how we do it. I'd like that to be a part of the story, but that the bigger part of the story, that's the guy who's saying this is how we do it, but him and his wife helped save 1 million marriages.
hmm.
That's probably what comes to my mind most, more than having things or
How are you
places or.
how are you going to do that? Are you going to grow, like, I know you've got Masterpiece, but have you considered putting on like conferences and retreats? Have you considered building a team in that sense?
We've done that. What we are also working on right now is we have a place called the Jordan River, and the Jordan River is the property that I was speaking about here in Georgia. It's a place where public marriages can heal in private.
Yeah.
And so the idea behind it is, if we can't get to 1 million marriages, but I can get to one marriage that influences 1 million people, then I'm willing to put the time and investment into that marriage, because if people can see them do it and can see us do it, I think the influence of different people that we're able to help will be able to
Mhm.
help other people.
Wow, that's beautiful. I
That's
love
that's the
that.
work we're doing. That's the work we're doing right now.
Wow. Okay, so last question. Um, would you ever dip your toe back in the secular industry, being who you are
Sure.
now?
I do it now. I do it now.
Okay.
I tour on the I Love the 90s tour. I've adjusted my musical content to not compromise who I am as an artist. There are certain songs I just don't sing anymore.
Okay.
I changed the words to different songs. But I tour. I've been out on the road with, even recently, with a lot of the 90s artists,
Amazing.
R&B and hip hop. So Vanilla Ice,
Oh,
uh,
fun.
Tone Loc, Young MC, Naughty by Nature, Salt and Pepper, the R&B artist John B and
Mm,
Donnell Jones, and like I will do R&B shows and I'll do hip hop shows, but I use those stages, which are for entertainment, to turn those stages into platforms
mm,
or influence. And so it's been a tool, having a virtual church, to go around the world and
totally.
allowing people to see, hey, you know me from these songs and we're connected through these songs, but I'm
Hmm.
here to let you see what it looks like when God gets a hold of a man's heart and then changes him and then puts him back with the people who knew him.
Hmm.
And you know there's something different, but you don't know what it is.
Yeah.
It's Jesus. Jesus is what's different in me, and I get to do that in those secular spaces.
Have most people been receptive and positive about the changes?
I haven't had a lot of pushback regarding.
Good.
I mean, it's been very cool to have promoters that allow me to be able to share my faith.
Hmm.
It's a pretty bold thing to share one's faith in a non-spiritual place, you
Totally.
know.
Yeah.
But I have not had a show that I performed and said what I said and did what I did that someone did not come back afterwards and say, "Hey, what you said tonight was for me."
Oh, wow. That's powerful.
And we got church members now who are from all around the nation simply because I was there somewhere in concert and said, if you don't go to the local church, it's not a bad deal to have Montell Jordan be your pastor here. Sunday
Yeah.
nights, 6 p.m. Eastern, pull up. And we
Yeah.
got people that we get to love on and serve because they were not going to go to a local church anyway. And so now they're getting worship and they're getting the word. They're just getting it virtually.
Yeah. That's amazing. I love everything that you're doing. I think it's beautiful. We have similar visions in that I'm hoping Safe Harbor becomes a physical property one day where people can come for respite, marriage counseling as well, because I counsel a lot of couples who are battling betrayal because it's just so bad right now. Most
Sure.
people don't even stay married anymore. But yeah, it honestly, it's been such an honor talking to you. I've loved every second of this conversation. I don't want to ask you to do it. Everybody said, "Well, you get them to sing. This is how we do. This is how we do
What to be on this pod and go, this is how we do it. Of
it."
course we
Yeah.
can do that. We don't do it for everybody, but we'll do it for you.
Oh, you're amazing. Um, do you have any questions for me?
I would say, I guess if I gave you a question, I would wonder, um, is this what you're called to do? Do you feel like this is what your purpose is at this season in your life?
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, I do. I do feel like that right now. Um like I have not had the level of fame you've had, but I have walked quite a difficult path over the past 15 years. And I walked away from a job in national security. I worked for 21 years in because I just felt my heart and my soul being pulled to the point where I used to love my work, and then I was waking up depressed, like unable to get out of bed. And
Mm.
then COVID hit, and COVID made me, I have three young kids, made me re-look at my entire life and what are my priorities and who am I, right? Because my identity had become completely intertwined with being a spy, right? Like working in security. It was like every like there is very much an identity that people who work in those environments take on. And I just felt like if I leave there, who am I? I'm not cool anymore. I was like,
Yeah.
what am I gonna do? I'm gonna say I'm a mom, I'm at home. But one thing that I've always just loved people, and my heart is full when I connect, and when I just fell into coaching over COVID. I went back to school, took a year program, and it's just, I'm open for God to move and show me where he wants me. And nothing lights me up more than talking to people and seeing, and you can physically see the lights go on. And you can see them shift the way they think about things and open their hearts to the possibility of them having a higher power, because it's just the only way I know how to live. I've always lived that way. I'm more vocal about it now. And
Mhm.
so in terms of like, am I I don't know, there's a part of me that's like, okay, God, show me the money. If this is what you want me to do, I'm going to have to be able to turn this into a way of supporting my family. And it's new and it's growing. And I'm just choosing to trust that doors will close if this is not where I'm supposed to be. But I've been able to sort of combine my passion for music and artists and also just helping people into this business. So we'll see. Pray for me. I'll pray for you.
No, absolutely. Let me share something with you real quick. Um, money follows vision.
Mm,
Money chases vision. Vision does not chase money. And I'm saying that because in
mm,
order for you to provide for your family, all you have to do is have the vision for what you want Safe Harbor to be, what you want it to become, what you want it to look like, how you want it to expand. You have to write the vision and make it plain
mhm.
so that people that can read it and know how to run with your vision that God gave to you. Let him give you the vision of what it is and write it down. Don't just have it in your mind
Yeah.
somewhere. Actually have it written down. And when you
Okay.
have that vision written down, what will happen is money has to chase that
Mm.
vision because it always God does not give you a vision without provision,
Oh, I like that. I'm
right?
I'm quoting you on that.
Why would he give you the vision
Yeah.
without giving you the provision? He's not going to give you the provision and then say do what you want with it because the vision can have vision drift.
No, I'd go
And
buy some shoes or something.
it can
That wouldn't
well
be a good idea.
that's what I do. That's what I do. I'd go buy us some shoes. But
Yeah.
have your vision, have it written, and then be ready for the ride.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm ready. It's happening. Look, I get whenever I talk about things like this, like really openly with people who are open to discussing spirituality, I get like goosebumps and I get like, you know, you know what I'm talking about, like just
Mm-hmm.
the feelings of that. Yes, this is it. This is the right path. Keep going.
Yes.
Oh man. Well, you're a cool dude.
Thank you. Thank you. I
Thank
appreciate that. You're a
thank you
cool
so
gal too.
well,
A lot of
thank
fun
you.
today. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun and thanks for going over time with me. And I'll be tuning in to virtual church on Sunday. So
If you have a chance, you should pull up on Sunday and get in the chat and be like, this is Kristen or this is Safe Harbor, and I'll know it's you. And we'll show you some love in the chat room.
yeah, I would love that. That's
Okay.
amazing. Thank you so much, Montel.
Thank you very much. Good talking to you.